welcome in to another stitch tutorial, Tunisian style. I am using some scrap for this because, you know, I'm not making up a whole thingy. I'm just showing you a sample. And this is a fairly easy Tunisian stitch. Now, the full stitch is as I'm showing you, but when it's made up into whatever, you know, like a bigger portion, it's then known as the mesh stitch. So just bear that in mind. Mesh stitch is the same as Tunisian full stitch. So we're starting with the typical foundation for Tunisian, and yes, I am using my Tunisian hook, which is a Knit Pro Trends. I don't need the tail on the end because I'm not doing that much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm going to do 16. We need an even number. Into the second chain from the hook. So not this one, this one. We're going in, drawing up that loop and leaving it there. We're going to the next, yarn over, leave the loop on, and so on. Ta-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Maybe not, Lisa. This is where I get all stabby with my hook holding, because you can't do pencil grip with Tunisian, unfortunately. I'd be far more comfortable. Oops. I'd be far more comfortable, but it just doesn't work like that. Did you enter the Woolly Wednesday giveaway? Winner is being drawn tomorrow, so if you haven't, get over there quickly. And it'll be linked at the end of this video as well. Oops. Yarn over. Thank you. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, as needed. Then we need to start the second half of the row, which is the Passover. So we're yarning over and going through one, which will chain up one. So we go on to the next level, and then we do the Passover row as any other. Now this is going to be a 2-row repeat. If you don't repeat this way, you're going to end up with a slant to your work. So please make a note, keep track however you can, because you don't want to lose yourself. Your name isn't M&M, I am certain of it. Okay, so ordinarily in Tunisian, we're working around the posts in one way or another. In the full stitch, we're not. We are literally, if you open up, we are going between the N, as it were. So you've got this stitch as an example. That's your front post. There's your back post behind it. You don't want to touch that. Have a look to the next one. There's your front, there's your back. You want to go between the two stitches completely, but not just there. You need to go into the first one. So the first one, just there. Yarn over, pull through, and bring that loop up. You don't want to be tight with this. There's one stitch, there's another stitch. You're going between the stitches completely. Yarn over, bring up that loop. Again, between the stitches. Whoops. Not in the middle of the stitch. There we go. So there's a stitch, there's a stitch. You're going between the two. Bring up that loop and do that to the end of the row. Oh, can you see some of the stitch markers? That's just some that are available in my Etsy store right now, which of course is linked down below underneath the timestamps for this tutorial. If you fancy going and having a look, I'd really appreciate it. If you like something, please heart it, because it really, really helps. There we go, back to stabby again. Just keep going between the stitches. And this is the last one. Leave it alone. On the first row, leave that last one alone and go straight into doing the very last stitch, the edge stitch, as you would under normal conditions. So make sure you've got the 2 bars on your hook, yarn over and pull through. Oh my gosh. Ah, catastrophe. Hang on. Well, that hasn't happened to me before. Oops. So you're doing your Passover row as normal. Oh no, that's just taken them off, hasn't it? So let's add that back on. So you're missing this last between the stitches, and you're going into that edging stitch as you would ordinarily with the front and the back on your hook. Yarn over and pull through, and then you want to chain 1 and then start the Passover row. So you're going back by 2 each time. This is also a Knit Pro, but it's not trends. Okay, so far so good. Now on this row, this is the second row of the repeat, you are going to miss out that very first between, and you're going to the second. So between the stitches, not in the middle of the stitch, but in between the 2 stitches. Yarn over, pull through, bring up that loop, make sure it's nice and loose, because tight Tunisian is horrible Tunisian. Go in between, all the way to the end. Just yarning over, bringing up that loop and keeping it on your hook each time. Just make sure you go between. Don't go in the middle of posts, because that's a different stitch completely. And we've got the end, and we are going into the last stitch this time. Well, not into the stitch, between the 2 this time. Now, this is where you count up and you double check that you've only, you know how many you've got at the end. So I need 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 3 left. So there's one there. There's one there. But we're missing out the one on the end. And we're literally just putting into, we're not missing the one on the end. We're literally making one on the end and then doing your edging stitch. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Jolly good. And then we're doing that one right on the end where you grab the bars, you yarn over, pull through, and then you should have your 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And we finish off the row by yarning over and pulling through 1, which makes a chain up. And then pass over row, yarn over, pull through 2 each time until you get to the very end. Oops, a van's just pulled up. You're going to have to bear with me because I think I know who that is. So let me just get to the end. Hope I beat them to the door. Bear with me a moment. Crisis averted. Okie dokie. So the 2 row repeat rather, not 2 stitches. Let me just untangle some yarn bath. And get rid of that hook. There we go. Okay. So we worked into the end on the last row. So we're going to be missing the end on the last stitch. So for this one, we are going into that very first, just there, and pulling up a loop. And going between each of the stitches, making sure you don't go through the posts all the way to the end. So what you're going to be doing is on one row, you miss the first stitch. On the next row, you miss the last stitch, and so on. But as with any Tunisian, always count your stitches because it is so easy to miss stitches in Tunisian. Counting really has to be your friend if you're going to attack a Tunisian project. See, now I've got a post getting hooked by a little bit of fuzz. Just move it out the way. So I'm missing this last one here, and I'm going straight into the very edge so that I get an edge stitch rather than doing what I've done all the way along. Yarn over, pull through. It's so pretty. And then chain 1 and do your pass over. Oops. And one more row. because we missed the last stitch on the previous row. On this row we miss the first. Bear with me, let me get rid of some yarn bath. Okay, so on this row, if we're missing the first, we're not going into here, but we're going into the next one over. Yarn over, pull through, in between the stitches, not in between the posts of each stitch. Make sure you keep the loops on your hook. Oops. Keep those loops up so you're not overly tight, because that's going to be another problem. Ain't it pretty? It's so pretty. So we missed the beginning. So there's the last stitch over here. Just manipulate that post a little bit to get it out the way. And then going to the edging stitch, making sure the front and the back are both on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. And then we need to do the Passover row. So yarn over, pull through one, that chains up a row, and then continue the Passover as normal, 2 at a time. And that is it. Just remember, if you miss the first stitch, on the next row you miss the last stitch. If you miss the last stitch, you make sure that you miss the first one on the next row, and it will gradually build up. That will be straight as it comes onto the next row. That will come over again a little bit and it will be a little bit straighter. But there you have a lovely demonstration by the Picasso. There we go. And that is a Tunisian tutorial for full stitch, leading into the mesh stitch when it is worked up. Hopefully it was nice and easy for you and you'll give it a go. Maybe. And hopefully I will see you next week for another tutorial. Take care. Bye bye.